The cold winter wind howled outside the small, cozy home where Sarah and John lived with their 12-year-old son, Daniel. Inside, the house was warm, filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the sound of laughter. Sarah was a loving mother, always ensuring her family was happy and well-fed, while Daniel, with his bright eyes and curious nature, was the light of her life. However, the atmosphere had recently shifted. John, who had once been a loving and attentive husband, had become increasingly distant. The stress from his job was mounting, and whispers of an affair had begun to circulate. One frigid evening, the tension reached a boiling point as the family sat down for dinner. His face etched with frustration, John slammed his fist on the table. "I can't take this anymore, Sarah. You're always nagging, always on my back." Sarah, her eyes welling with tears, tried to reason with him. "John, please, we can work through this. Think about Daniel." But John was persistent. "No, Sarah. I want you and Daniel out of this house. Tonight." The words hit like a physical blow. Daniel, confused and scared, clung to his mother. With no other choice, Sarah packed a few belongings and, hand in hand with her son, left the warmth of their home for the cold, unforgiving night. Sarah and Daniel found themselves in a small, run-down apartment in a poor neighborhood. The walls were thin, the heating barely worked, and the sound of sirens and shouting filled the air. Life was tough. Sarah took on multiple jobs, cleaning houses and working at a diner to make ends meet. She would come home late, exhausted, but always with a smile for Daniel. Daniel struggled at his new school. The other kids teased him about his worn clothes and the dark circles under his eyes. He missed his old life, friends, and the security he once felt, but he saw his mother's sacrifices and vowed to help her however he could. Despite the hardships, Sarah and Daniel found strength in each other. They would spend evenings reading together, sharing stories, and dreaming of a better future. Their bond grew more robust, forged in the fires of adversity. Meanwhile, John's life had taken a different turn. He had married Linda, a beautiful but selfish woman. They lived in a large, luxurious home with expensive furniture and lavish decor. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. However, it wasn't long before cracks began to show. Linda was demanding, spending lavishly on clothes and jewelry, and showing little interest in John's emotional well-being. She threw extravagant parties and basked in the attention of her social circle, while John felt increasingly isolated. John realized that Linda was not the loving partner he had hoped for. Their relationship was shallow, based more on physical attraction and materialism than genuine connection. He missed the warmth and sincerity of his life with Sarah and Daniel. As the months passed, John's home, once filled with laughter and love, became a place of tension and coldness. Linda, dissatisfied with her marriage, started rekindling her relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Tom. She would secretly meet him, enjoying the thrill of their clandestine meetings. John began to suspect that something was wrong. He noticed Linda's secretive behavior, the late-night phone calls, and the unexplained absences. But he chose to ignore the signs, hoping that things would improve. One evening, Linda came home and announced she was leaving. She had decided to go back to Tom, taking a significant portion of John's wealth with her. John was left heartbroken and financially unstable, his world shattered by his choices. Desperate and alone, John found himself on the streets. He wandered, trying to come to terms with his situation. One night, he swallowed his pride and decided to contact Sarah and Daniel. He had no other options. He arrived at their modest home, looking haggard and worn. Sarah was shocked to see him in such a state. Daniel, now a teenager, stood by his mother's side, his face a mixture of anger and pity. "Sarah, please," John pleaded. "I have nowhere else to go. I made a terrible mistake. Please, let me come home." Sarah's heart ached to see the man she once loved so broken. But she also remembered the nights she and Daniel spent struggling, the tears and the pain. She looked at Daniel, who shook his head firmly. "No, Dad," Daniel said, his voice steady. "You left us when we needed you most. We've built a new life without you. We can't let you back in." With tears in her eyes, Sarah supported her son's decision. "I'm sorry, John. You made your choice and we've moved on. We can't go back." John's health began to deteriorate as he lived on the streets. The harsh conditions took their toll, and he fell ill. He found himself in a hospital, weak and regretful, with nothing but his thoughts for company. As he lay in the sterile hospital bed, John reflected on his past choices. He realized the depth of his mistakes and the family he had abandoned. The pain of his regrets weighed heavily on him, but it was too late to change the past. One day, Sarah received a call from the hospital. John was critically ill and had asked to see her and Daniel. Despite everything, she couldn't ignore his plea. Sarah and Daniel visited John, finding him pale and frail. The man who once seemed so strong was now a shadow of his former self. John looked at them with tears in his eyes, his voice weak and full of regret. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I've made so many mistakes. Please forgive me." Sarah, tears streaming down her face, took his hand. "We've forgiven you, John, but we can't forget. We've moved on and found strength in each other." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolution. "We're going to be okay, Dad. You need to find peace." John passed away that night, finally at peace with his choices. At his funeral, Sarah and Daniel found closure. They realized that while John had made terrible mistakes, they had emerged more vital from their ordeal. Their bond remained unbreakable, forged through shared hardship and resilience.